What if I told you that the most powerful man in history didn't raise his voice, didn't chase revenge, and didn't seek approval? He ruled an empire, and more importantly, he ruled himself. His name was Marcus Aurelius. And today we're not just studying him, we're becoming untouchable by his rules of power. If you're tired of being manipulated, overlooked, or underestimated, this is your blueprint to becoming the kind of person who commands respect without saying a word. You're watching Stoic Spark, and if something in you wants to rise above the noise, above the chaos, then lock in, take notes, and comment, "I am my own power," if you're ready to transform. Let's begin. Number 1. The Stoic Shield: how emotional indifference makes you powerful. Power isn't about how loudly you speak, how hard you hit back, or how many followers you have. Real power, the kind that makes you untouchable, begins with emotional indifference. Marcus Aurelius mastered this. He knew that the man who controls his emotions controls the battlefield. You see, when someone tries to provoke you and you don't react, you've already won. The Stoics called it apatheia, not apathy, but the disciplined calm that no insult, betrayal, or failure can shake. The modern world worships outrage and overreaction, but Marcus, he trained himself to remain still inside the storm. And when you practice this daily, not reacting to petty attacks, not needing validation, not absorbing chaos, people stop seeing you as weak. They start seeing you as mysterious, powerful, untouchable. If you're ready to adopt this shield of calm, comment, "I am my own power" below, and let others know what emotional strength really looks like. And remember, the more silent your strength, the louder your presence becomes. Number 2. Control the inner court. Rule your thoughts or be ruled by them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not just poetic, that's psychological warfare. Imagine your mind as a court, and you're the emperor. Every thought is a voice trying to persuade, distract, or sabotage you. If you let those voices run wild, fear, doubt, insecurity, you've already lost. But if you govern them like a ruler, you dominate your inner world. And that's where real power begins. Dark psychology agrees. People with disciplined minds are nearly impossible to manipulate. They think before they feel, they pause before they act, and they choose what thoughts deserve their energy. Most people are slaves to their impulses, but you're learning to become a king in your own mind. That's rare, that's dangerous, that's powerful. Comment, "I am my own power," if you've ever had to fight your own thoughts and refuse to lose. You're not just watching Stoic Spark, you're training for psychological sovereignty. Number 3, the power of selective silence. Use mystery and minimalism to dominate perception. The loudest person in the room is often the weakest. Marcus Aurelius understood a truth echoed in both Stoicism and dark psychology. Silence is a weapon. Not because it hides your thoughts, but because it controls the narrative. When you speak less, people project more. They fill in the blanks with fear, admiration, or curiosity. That's power. Strategic silence isn't weakness, it's dominance in disguise. The Stoics practiced it to keep their egos in check. But dark psychologists use it to manipulate perception, unsettle opponents, and build mystique. Combine the two, and you become someone who radiates presence without effort. You speak when it counts, you observe when others overshare, and you let your restraint do the talking. In a world addicted to attention, your silence becomes magnetic. So next time you're tempted to over-explain or defend yourself, don't. Stay calm, stay quiet, let the room wonder. Comment, "I am my own power," if you understand the force of saying nothing. And remember, silence, well placed, is louder than any shout. Number 4, the art of emotional detachment. master calmness to disarm manipulation. Most people are puppets, and their strings are emotional triggers. But Marcus Aurelius, he cut the strings. Emotional detachment isn't about being cold, it's about being in control. The Stoics believed that emotions were natural, but being ruled by them was a kind of slavery. Now here's where dark psychology creeps in. Manipulators rely on emotional responses. They bait you with insults, tempt you with praise, and hook you through guilt or fear. But if you're detached, not numb, but centered, their power dies. They can't move you because you've already chosen how to feel. This is the calm that disarms manipulation. When your mind doesn't flinch, when you don't rise to the bait, when your presence stays steady while others unravel, you don't just survive, you dominate. So when chaos strikes or someone tries to provoke you, remember this: the most dangerous man is the one who feels everything but shows nothing. Comment, "I am my own power," if you've ever refused to let someone else write your emotional script. You're watching Stoic Spark, and you're not here to react. You're here to rule. Number 5. Dark psychology, mirror and mask. Outsmart threats by reflecting and redirecting energy. Marcus Aurelius never swung recklessly. He never lunged at shadows. Instead, he observed, absorbed, and then reflected. And in this, we find one of the most dangerous forms of psychological warfare: the mirror and the mask. The mirror reflects. It shows people their own energy, their own motives, without resistance. The mask conceals. It protects your thoughts, emotions, and intentions, offering nothing for the enemy to strike. This is where Stoicism and dark psychology meet. When someone attacks you, mocks you, or tests you, don't flinch. Don't fire back. Reflect. Show them their own weakness. Let them see their emotional instability bouncing back from your calm. And all the while, behind the mask, observe everything. People fear what they can't read. They're unsettled by those who don't react. When you operate with a mirror in one hand and a mask in the other, you become unpredictable, unreadable, untouchable. This technique is ancient. Warriors used it to confuse opponents. Emperors used it to maintain power. You're not here to play checkers. You're here to play chess in silence. And every time you mirror someone's behavior without resistance, without emotion, and let them sit in the discomfort of their own chaos, you win. Comment, "I am my own power," if you've ever held your tongue and watched someone fall on their own sword. That's not passivity, that's psychological precision. Here on Stoic Spark, we don't fight to be right, we fight to stay free. And when you master the mirror and mask, you no longer chase control, you become it. Number 6. Obstacles as fuel. Marcus's law, turning pain into power. What if every setback you've ever faced wasn't an obstacle, but a hidden path? Marcus Aurelius believed exactly that. He famously wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This wasn't empty philosophy. It was a declaration of power. In the chaos of wars, betrayals, and plagues, Marcus discovered a simple truth. Adversity isn't the enemy. It's the training ground. And from that truth comes what I call Marcus's law. Every obstacle is fuel. Pain is not a wall, but wood for the fire. Most people collapse under pressure. They react, they complain, they break. But not the Stoic. The Stoic reframes instantly. You lose your job? Good. Now you're free to build something better. Someone betrays you? Good. Now you know who not to trust. Your heart breaks? Good. Now you can fortify it. Marcus knew that life would never hand you ease, but it would always hand you opportunities in disguise. The average person avoids pain. The Stoic converts it. And that mindset alone makes you powerful in a way most people can't even comprehend. But turning pain into power doesn't stop with mindset. It continues with motion. The Stoic doesn't just feel emotion, he channels it. Anger becomes fuel for discipline. Heartache becomes clarity. Rejection becomes refinement. Dark psychology teaches us that those who channel pain are unpredictable, even intimidating. Why? Because you can't control someone who controls their own suffering. When people expect you to collapse, and instead you rise, calmly, relentlessly, you become someone they respect, fear, or follow. You become a presence they can't ignore, and you don't just act, you reflect. Marcus was relentless in examining his own thoughts. Every night he would write, "What did I feel? Why did I react that way? What can I control next time?" Most people repeat their suffering because they never study it. But Marcus studied pain like a blueprint, and you must too. Pain becomes information. Information becomes insight. Insight becomes strategy. And strategy, that becomes untouchable power. Over time, this process, reframing pain, channeling emotion, reflecting deeply, it builds an identity. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of life's chaos. You become the architect of your resilience. And when others look at you, calm, precise, focused, they won't understand how you keep going. That's okay. They're not supposed to. You've learned the Stoics' greatest secret. Your wounds are not weaknesses. They are weapons. The scars, they're not shame. They're proof you survived battles no one even saw. So the next time life knocks you down, don't ask why me. Ask, how can I use this? Don't escape the fire, become the fire. That's the essence of Marcus's law. Every obstacle is not just a test. It's a chance to build a version of yourself that nothing and no one can break. And if this speaks to you, if you've ever turned pain into purpose, comment, "I am my own power," below. Let the world know you're not just watching Stoic Spark, you're living it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the spark inside you is only getting started. Number 7, the law of preeminence, quiet dominance through standards and discipline. Real power doesn't come from how loudly you speak. It doesn't live in aggressive words, in attention-seeking moves, or in dominance games. Real power, the kind that shapes rooms and silences chaos, is quiet. It walks in, unannounced, and shifts everything. Marcus Aurelius understood this kind of presence. He didn't need to threaten. He didn't need to prove. He simply lived by a standard that very few could reach, and that, more than his title as emperor, is what made him preeminent. It's what we now call the law of preeminence, the ability to command without controlling, to lead without chasing, and to dominate without ever raising your voice. Marcus didn't ascend through ambition alone. He didn't impose his will through brutality or manipulation. Instead, he cultivated an inner code, a set of principles so immovable, so exacting, that his very life became a model of quiet power. His standards governed every decision. His discipline was woven into his character. While others were driven by impulse or praise, Marcus measured himself by one thing only. How well did I live in alignment with my principles today? In a world today filled with noise, shortcuts, and shallow validation, that kind of self-mastery is rare. And that rarity is what gives it weight. You see, when you become a person of standards, not preferences, not ideals, but real, practiced, daily standards, you elevate yourself above most people without ever trying to. Your life begins to speak without needing captions. Your discipline whispers what others scream, and people notice, not because you ask them to, but because it's impossible not to feel it. Let's get one thing straight. Preeminence is not arrogance. It's not about superiority or ego. It's not about being better than others. It's about being better than your former self every single day. That's what Marcus Aurelius chased, not status, but self-command. And that's where the law of preeminence begins, in the internal pursuit of mastery. When your daily habits are tighter than most people's goals, when your boundaries are guarded like a fortress, and when your actions reflect your philosophy even under pressure, that's when people start to follow your lead without needing to be told. Discipline at this level becomes your identity. You don't just try to wake up early, you do. You don't hope to control your temper. You train it. You don't wish for clarity. You carve it out of silence through journaling, meditation, and ruthless honesty. These are not acts of vanity. They are acts of war against the laziness, the weakness, the excuses that try to rule your mind every single day. And when you win that internal war, others can feel it. You no longer need to explain yourself. You are the explanation. Here's where dark psychology enters the picture. People instinctively respect what they don't fully understand, and nothing is more quietly intimidating than someone who governs themselves. In a world that's emotionally chaotic and mentally undisciplined, your restraint becomes power. When you speak with calm precision while others spiral, when you remain steady under pressure, when you refuse to betray your values for temporary relief, you signal control. And control is magnetic. Whether they admit it or not, people are drawn to those who have direction. They trust those with standards, and they unconsciously adjust their behavior around those who live with purpose. That's why preeminence is quiet. It doesn't ask for attention. It earns deference, naturally and without force. But here's the deeper truth. Maintaining standards is exhausting. That's why most don't do it. It requires saying no to short-term pleasure. It demands accountability when no one's watching. It forces you to ask, every day, am I walking my talk? You can fake strength for a moment, but you can't fake standards over time. That's why those who live by this law stand out. They last, they rise, and they lead, not because they ask to, but because they must. Think about it. The man who disciplines his time, sharpens his thoughts, respects his own values, and refuses to fold under pressure. That man doesn't need a throne. He is the throne. Marcus Aurelius wrote not for the public, but for himself, in private, in pain, in solitude. That's where the law of preeminence is forged, not in public victories, but in private commitments. You want to become untouchable? Then build a life that holds even when no one is clapping. Your standards become your gravity. They attract what aligns and repel what doesn't. They create clarity, direction, and focus. And when someone violates your boundaries, you don't argue, you simply exit. When mediocrity knocks, you don't explain why it's not welcome. Your actions already made that clear. This is where your dominance becomes unshakable, not because you're above people, but because you're beyond distraction. So let me ask you, what do you stand for when everything's on the line? What does your discipline look like when you're tired, unseen, and uncelebrated? Who are you in the moments that no one will ever post about? That is your real identity. That is your power. That is the foundation of the law of preeminence. If you're walking this path, if you've ever raised your own standards and watched your life start to reflect it, comment, I am my own power below. Let the world know you're not interested in shallow attention. You're after deep, quiet command. You're not just watching Stoic Spark. You are the spark. And before we continue, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because when you live by standards instead of feelings, when your discipline becomes your voice, you don't just attract respect, you become it. Number 8, the invisible throne, how to command respect without ever asking for it. There's a throne that doesn't sit in a palace. It isn't built with gold. It isn't declared with titles or followers. It's the throne that sits in the mind, invisible, internal, unshakable. Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome, yes, but more importantly, he ruled himself. And in doing so, he discovered something few ever will. When you govern your own soul, you no longer need to beg for respect. You command it without asking. Respect, real respect, is never taken. It's never forced. It's given, and only to those who've earned it in silence. In a world obsessed with recognition, Marcus walked the opposite path. He lived with humility, restraint, and unwavering self-discipline. And ironically, that's what made people follow him. The more he turned inward, the more outward his presence expanded. Because people can feel power that doesn't need to prove itself. This is the paradox of the invisible throne. The higher you rise internally, the less noise you need to make externally. And yet, your presence deepens. Your words carry weight. Your silence cuts deeper than argument. Why? Because the respect others give you is a mirror of the respect you give yourself. In your habits, your choices, your standards, your inner world. So many people chase authority without authority over themselves. They demand respect from others while disrespecting their own time, their own boundaries, their own values. That's not power, that's pretense. Marcus didn't seek validation from the crowd. He trained himself to rise above his own impulses, and that made him magnetic. You see, people are drawn to those who don't need them. There's something deeply attractive, even unsettling, about someone who stands on their own inner throne. They don't flinch. They don't flex. They simply are. Dark psychology understands this too. The person who seeks no approval is the hardest to control. When you stop trying to be liked, you gain presence. When you no longer chase validation, you become anchored. And when you live by your own code, with quiet intensity, calm confidence, and unwavering principle, others adjust themselves around you. That's the invisible throne in action. Command without control, respect without request, dominance without display. But let me be clear, this isn't about being emotionless or distant. It's about being centered. The Stoic doesn't need to react to everything. He doesn't need to explain himself. His actions speak with such clarity that silence becomes louder than words. He enters the room with a stillness that speaks volumes, and when he does speak, people listen. And this isn't some mystical trait. It's built, slowly, daily, through the things no one sees. The early mornings, the held tongue during conflict, the hours of reading, reflecting, refining. It's built when you walk away from drama instead of diving in, when you practice self-restraint when others explode, when you let your actions outlive someone else's doubts. Every time you do that, you're building your invisible throne. And over time, people feel it. They treat you differently. They speak to you with more care. They second-guess their disrespect. Not because you demanded it, but because you've become someone they can't ignore. This is what Marcus Aurelius did. He ruled not just through military power or wealth, but through moral gravity, through stillness, through simplicity. He didn't command loyalty through fear, but through example. And when you do the same, when your life becomes a quiet demonstration of strength, clarity, and peace, you no longer need to ask for anything. You attract everything. So if you're building that inner throne, if you've ever walked away instead of exploding, stayed grounded when chaos called, or built yourself quietly while others watched, then comment, "I am my own power," below. Let people know that your power doesn't need to be loud, because it's real. You're watching Stoic Spark, and here we don't wear crowns. We earn them every single day from the inside out. You've just unlocked the blueprint to becoming untouchable, not through manipulation or bravado, but through inner mastery, through Marcus Aurelius's timeless rules of power, emotional control, silent presence, radical discipline, and the ability to transform every obstacle into fuel. You've learned how to wield the Stoic shield, how to sit on the invisible throne, how to reflect your enemies with the mirror and hide your strength behind the mask. You've seen how silence can dominate louder than noise, how standards speak louder than demands, and how true power is built not on titles, but on self-governance. These aren't just ideas, they are tools, and if you use them, not once but daily, you'll stop reacting to the world and start reshaping it. People will feel your presence shift, and they won't know exactly why, only that you are not the same. So if you're walking that path, the quiet, powerful, stoic path, comment one last time. I am my own power, and let it be a declaration, a signal that you're not here to compete. You're here to command through presence, principle, and precision. And if this video sparked something real in you, smash that like button, subscribe to Stoic Spark, and turn on notifications, because we're just getting started. There's more coming, more depth, more clarity, more fire. Until then, remember, you don't need permission to be powerful, just discipline and the courage to rule yourself.